Greetings from Oakhurst here in Yosemite National Park. I'm here in Yosemite Sugar Pine Railroad. So that is the old train and we're gonna ride this train. It will cost us $28 per trip, 1 hour round trip. So this is the Yosemite Mountain Sugar Pine Railroad. From 1899 to 1931, the Madera Sugar Pine Lumber Company logged over 30,000 acres in the immediate area, sowing almost 1.5 billion board feet of lumber. Wood burning Shay locomotives hauled the logs from the woods over a large network of narrow gauge rails to the sawmill at Sugar Pine. The wrap-sewn lumber was transported by a 54-mile flume to Madera in the San Joaquin Valley to be planted and shipped to a worldwide market. The Yosemite Mountain Sugar Pine Railroad, founded in 1965, is a restoration of this bygone era. The track now used is restored on exactly the same grade used from 1908 to 1924. The locomotives, cars, and equipment used now to haul passengers instead of logs are authentic, dating back to the early 1900s, preserved for future generations, where we gonna ride this locomotive train. I'm excited to go to our destination using this restored locomotive train and to see the San Joaquin Valley from the Yosemite Mountain Sugar Pine Railroad here in Oakhurst, Yosemite National Park or Valley. So we've already buy our tickets, and this is ticket line. It will leave at 11 a.m. now, August 23, 2022. So this is the train, and that is the old lumber mill behind me. You see, there's the old lumber. Let's go there and see the old lumber woods that they haul from this train towards the sugar pine mill. And this is the where we buy the tickets, the Yosemite Mountain Sugar Pine Railroad office. So there are many people here. It's our first time here to go here. Okay, there's always room for the first time. This is the logs. Oh, it's too big, too long, too hard. So I already purchased my ticket. I got my ticket now. It cost me $28 for a round trip ticket to the locomotive train. About 5 minutes at 11 o'clock. It will leave here. August 23, 2022 is the date today. So there are many people. Look around. This is a souvenir store and also the where you buy tickets, and the office. It's a good weather today, sunny weather. Here in California, in Yosemite Valley. This is near Fresno, Yosemite International Airport, where we landed 2 days ago, August 21, 2022.
A few safety rules before we get underway here.
YOLO.
Rule number 1 is for your safety. For your safety and the safety of those around you, we ask that you please remain seated throughout the entire duration of the trip. Thank you guys. Your wristbands. Awesome. Thank you guys. Wristband. Thank you.
Nasa yung kutkutin, may kinukutkut tayo.
Parang movie lang ito.
Nagay sila oh. Wala na ako memory.
Wala na nga eh. Iit mo na yung ano. Yung lakad ko sa airport.
Bye! Ciao!
Ganito no, chill lang. Chill lang.
Ayun yung girl.
Once again, welcome aboard, everyone.
Oh, magbabay ka.
Starting with that
Magbabay ka
spur
sa-
track to the left of us, the
Bye-bye.
tank car,
Ciao.
strapped up ballast car, little green diesel,
Ciao.
along with some work equipment that you see there. All of that equipment, along with the 2 steam locomotives that we operate here, and even the cars that we are riding on now, were purchased from the West Side Lumber Company of Tuolumne, California. It's about 100 miles to the north of us. The West Side was still in the logging business with steam locomotives up until the early 1960s, and the Madera Sugar Pine Lumber Company was one of the largest and most profitable logging businesses up here. And they operated from 1899 until 1931, when they voluntarily closed down their operations. When they did close down, they scrapped all of their equipment, including the track. We brought this equipment down here from Tuolumne, relayed the track, and put the equipment back into service. And the track was relayed on the Madera Sugar Pine Lumber Company line that was used from 1908 to 1924.
Pinapakita niya no, yung train o yung
Yung ano, equipment na ginamit ng 18th century.
kaya ang isang oras.
Coming up on our left is a power pole. As your seat reaches that power pole, look out and across the canyon, and the furthest mountain that you'll see is Raymond Mountain. Raymond Mountain has those granite-covered peaks, and it has an elevation of 8,500 feet. And at one time, using this track, they were logging halfway up Raymond Mountain. They were clear-cutting that timber, and then bringing it back down to the canyon below us, and then to the mill site in Sugar Pine. Logging first began in the southern Sierras in 1874 with the California Lumber Company, and for nearly 60 years, trees were clear-cut without a single tree ever getting replanted. Most of the trees that we see today are a result of natural reseeding done by the very few trees that were left standing once they had finished logging. And that makes this a very young forest. It's only about 100 years of age or so. On August 29, 2017, the railroad fire began just across Highway 41. It burned down through this canyon, burning just over 12,000 acres before being 100% contained on October 24th of that same year. A huge thanks to the efforts of CAL FIRE and the U.S. Forest Services, as we suffered no building damage and minimal equipment losses. The first type of tree that I would like to point out on our trip today is the incense cedar. Looking in pretty much any direction here, we're going to find the incense cedars with that reddish-brown segmented type bark. And the larger incense cedars are going to look like the California redwood. Now, most of these trees do have burn scar from the railroad fire, but if you can spot one of these trees with just a little bit of that black substance on one side or at the base of the tree, that's actually a black powder fungus that grows due to the lack of sunlight. It doesn't affect the quality of the trees nor the health of the trees. This section of track that we're entering is called Horseshoe Curve. In 1908, a labor force dug out this curve using just hand picks and shovels. While they did have some teams of horses and mules to haul out some of the dirt with a wagon, they hauled a majority of it out by hand with a wheelbarrow. Now, if you want to get an idea for how much work was involved in that project, the inside curve, that hillside right there, is not a natural hillside. All of that dirt was displaced to make room for the right-of-way that we're riding on right now. Through this section of track, you'll notice that there are some trees that have been snapped clean in half halfway up the tree or completely uprooted. And that's because back in January of 2021, we had a major wind event, a mono wind event. Now, we do get mono winds most years, but this storm was ugly, with those winds sustaining from 40 to 60 miles per hour, and even gusting up to 80 miles per hour for days. And one gust measured at the crest of the Sierras came in at 175 miles per hour.
Wow.
Now this section of track did suffer more significant damage, and that's due to the topography. The wind was whipping in from the Raymond Mountain area in the north, and the canyon walls closed in, and that gave that wind nowhere to go, and that caused this incredible storm damage that we see before us. Our track crew spent the winter getting 60 trees cleared off of our right-of-way here. And we are continuing to work to get our right-of-way cleaned up. And don't worry, we won't be looking at burn scar and storm damage the whole way down the canyon. Two types of pine trees that I would like to point out on our trip today are the ponderosa pine and the sugar pine. There's a couple of ways to tell these trees apart, and one is by the length of the needles. The ponderosa pine needles grow 8 to 10 inches in length, while the sugar pine needles grow 2 to 3 inches long. Another way to tell the trees apart is by the way that those needles grow. So they grow in clusters. A sugar pine has 5 needles per cluster, and the ponderosa pine has 3. The easiest way to tell these trees apart is by the pine cones that the sugar pine tree produces. The sugar pine tree produces the largest pine cone in the world, and those pine cones can range from 10 to 26 inches in length. And when they're green and full of sap, they can weigh up to 4 pounds. Coming into view on our right-hand side down below us is a dirt road. That dirt road is Mill Canyon Road. It is one of the last lines used by the Madera Sugar Pine Lumber Company. That line was in service from 1927 until they closed down in 1931. It now is a U.S. Forest Access Road and Emergency Vehicle Access Road. Today we are riding on narrow gauge tracks, which when measured between the rails is 36 inches, compared to your standard gauge you might find on typical Amtrak or freight trains. That's 56.5 inches between the rails. The Madera Sugar Pine Lumber Company had about 140 miles of this narrow gauge track in operation for their logging business, but they only used about 15 to 20 miles of the track at a time. And that's because the tracks came away from the mill site in sugar pine like spokes on a wheel. So when they finished logging in one direction, they would pick up those tracks, lay them off in another direction, and then continue logging. Today we are riding behind a Shay locomotive. And the Madera Sugar Pine Lumber Company had 5 wood burning of these Shay locomotives in operation for their logging business. And that's the same type of locomotive that we're behind today, with the exception that ours burns oil rather than wood. The Shay was invented by a Michigan lumberman named Ephraim Shay. Ephraim used to haul his lumber across the ground using oxen, but after many dry months in Michigan and not making any money, he came up with the invention of the Shay locomotive. He built a train that could handle the tight curves and steep grades of the mountains to be able to haul all of that lumber. So in 1880, the Lima Locomotive Works in Lima, Ohio, invented the first of what would be the company's principal products and make them famous around the globe. We are riding behind Shay number 15 today. She weighs in at 59 tons, and on our round trip today, she'll burn 60 gallons of oil and about 500 gallons of water. And if we're lucky, in just a moment, she's going to put on a little show for us. So I do want to ask that everyone stay seated if you would like to take pictures.
Wow! Gorgeous!
What we just saw there was called a blowdown. There's a couple of reasons why we do a blowdown. For maintenance, we want to scour out any sediment or corrosion that could have settled at the bottom of the boiler. Another reason is simply that our fireman has too much water. And finally, it just looks really cool and we like drains. The red bushes that you see on either side of the track are manzanita. Manzanita is Spanish for little apple, and that's because in the fall time they produce a little red berry. And then the Native Americans of this region used to pick that berry and brew it into a cider drink. They now serve as a food source for our mule deer and black bear of this region.
Oh, black bears. They food for the
Growing
black bears.
alongside the manzanitas, you'll find a dense ground cover, and that's bear clover. Bear clover was another useful plant to the Native Americans of this region. They would pick the leaves and brew it into a tea, which when consumed could cure general aches and pains and headaches. And that's because bear clover contains the main ingredient of aspirin. The loggers had another term for bear clover. They called it mountain misery, and that's
What
because
is it?
in the springtime it produces a little white flower, and that makes it smell very strongly. And when they had to go trudging through it, it would make their clothes reek for months. The Madera Sugar Pine Lumber Company employed a workforce of about 800 men at a time. And these men didn't receive benefits we think of today, such as health or dental. And in fact, the general laborers were paid 10 cents an hour, and our skilled
10 cents an
laborers,
hour?
such as carpenters or engineers, were paid 30 cents an hour.
Malaki pa
The
value yun ng
lumberjacks
araw.
were paid by the trees, so the more trees that they cut down, the more money that they would earn. Coming into view next to our locomotive on the left-hand side again is a little grove of trees with that gray bark with the moss kind of scattered along it. Those are oak trees. That's the California black oak. And although they weren't favored for logging
Where
and
is it?
milling, they were harvested all the same.
Maybe
As
this
the
one.
oak wood burns hot and long, so they were perfect for these Shay locomotives to burn their wood. Using just cross-cut saws and axes, these 800 men would load and cut about 80 flat cars of timber a day. And over the entire lifetime of the operation of the Madera Sugar Pine Lumber Company, they averaged 50.5 billion with a B board feet of timber a year. And that's enough rough cut timber that if you took all of the timber that they cut over their entire lifetime and stacked it next to you and started laying it end to end, you would circle the globe more than 11 times. Once that timber was clear cut, it was loaded up onto the steam train and then taken down to the mill site in Sugar Pine. There at the mill site, it was dumped into the log pond where it was stripped of its bark and given its first rough cut. That rough cut timber was then stacked into bundles 12 to 14 inches in height, and a metal clamp called a Thurman clamp was placed on either side of those bundles of wood. That rough cut timber then was placed into the flume. Now this flume was a V-shaped wooden trough that was fed by gravity to Madera.
I'm sitting on a lumber wood.
Stationed along the flume were flume herders.
Uh-huh.
Their job was simply to keep track of the shipments of wood as it flowed down the flume. And if they encountered a problem, such as a log jam,
Hanggang saan ang
they would
iba?
go back to the station they were working out of, let the folks at Sugar Pine know, and then they would stop shipment until they got their problem fixed. Now, as you can imagine, the days were long and the work was hard. Generally, they could expect to work 6 days a week, 10 hours a day. But on their days off, their time was their own, and they could board what was called a flume boat. Now, when I say boat, that term is used very loosely. This flume boat was nothing more than a couple of scrap pieces of wood that were nailed together. It didn't have handholds, and often you couldn't sit down. Now, if you were brave enough, or in my opinion, crazy enough to board one of these flume boats, then you could expect to reach speeds up to
128
50
gigabytes.
miles an hour, leaving the steep grades of sugar pine. Now, unfortunately, because the flume is one-way travel, it was up to the workers to find their own way back from Madera. And we're lucky to give you a little example of what our Shea locomotives were capable of. I will ask that everyone remain seated as this is a very brief stopover.
This is another rail track, the other side. Maybe going home, going back. There's also one like this in Chama, New Mexico. But we were on a Great Plains, in a plains in between mountains. But here, we are literally inside the jungle, the forest. So this is what's new here in Yosemite Mountain Sugar Pine Railroad. Here in California,
Shea locomotives used to be capable of. Our Shea number 15 was built in 1913, and she just celebrated her 109th year birthday, and she's still going strong. We are now arriving in Lewis Creek Canyon, our stopover point. During this time, I invite you to either disembark the train and check out this part of the forest. We do have some picnic tables and restrooms down here if you need to use them.
Disembark.
You can also remain on board if you'd like. We'll be calling all aboard at 11:36. Raccoons you might find, we call them leave 'em rights because we want to leave them right where we found them.
so we came from
Watch your
the
step as you disembark.
Yosemite Mountain Sugar Pine Railroad. The address is 56001 Highway 41, Fishcamp, California. And we are now here in Lewis Creek, here in California. It is a deep forest. Okay, so we'll stay here, and the duration of the ride is an hour round trip. Okay. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed by hitting the right bottom of your desktop screen. Keep watching. Thank you for watching Andrew Lewis TV. This is greetings, YOLO. Greetings from Lewis Creek here in California. YOLO. Say YOLO. Sek YOLO. YOLO. Cool, that's cool. Cool. This is cool. This is the engine of the locomotive train. Cool. It's run by steam engine, and it needs coal, oil, and water for this train to to run. So that's the crew. So this train came from Fish Camp in California, the Yosemite Mountain Sugar Pine Railroad, towards here in Lewis Creek, California. Here in Yosemite Trails Park Station, you see this is if you want to rent a horse for your horseback riding, this is the place to be. So there are beautiful horses here. Stallion, I know only stallion. I don't know all the breeds of the breeds of horses. And I know the famous is stallion. And I don't know what are these breeds of horses. Who are the breeders? So the breeders will know these horses you see. Oh, this is a horse, another horse. What kind of horse are you? See? Hello. Many horses here. This is the ticketing office. So how much is the cost per hour? It will cost us $70 per hour for 1 hour horseback riding, $120 for 2 hours. If you want to ride a horse, go here at this place in Yosemite Trails Station. Let's try this pizza, the deck. Yummy. Magnifico.
Tell me something about your pizza.
The pizza is composed of
What makes it special?
thick crust. It's the bacon. It's the pepperoni, the bell peppers, the olives, the tomatoes, the chicken,
Yeah. Chicken,
the mushrooms.
bacon, mushroom,
and myself.
olives.
Let's make it more delicious.
Oh no. Umay ako.
Let's go. Let's eat.
Or naka-video. Okay. Bite.
Please subscribe my channel if you haven't subscribed at the right bottom of your desktop screen. To my Yolonians, thank you to my more than 2,000 subscribers. Keep watching, and if you like, just hit like, comment, or share down below.